Hi guys, welcome to this tutorial. So in this tutorial, I'll take you through the installation of Spring Cloud Data Flow on my local Windows machine. And I'll also demonstrate that how you can run a task, a stream, or a Spring Batch job on Spring Cloud Data Flow server. So we will go to the Spring Cloud Data Flow Getting Started guide and follow the installation, local installation. I'll choose manual installation, and there are some binaries that we need to download. So we'll start with downloading these binaries. I've already downloaded these binaries onto my local machine. For convenience, I have also put the commands to start the Java processes for Skipper server and Dataflow server as a Windows command file, so which I have saved. And once we click on this, the two processes would start. So the Skipper server is necessary for the actual deployment of various tasks and jobs, and Dataflow server just coordinates using Spring, the Skipper server. So let's wait till the servers get started. So once the server gets started, we can see the dashboard at localhost 9393 port. Okay. And so this is the dashboard of Spring Cloud Data Flow. Here we can see various menu items. Everything here needs to be registered as an application, and there are different ways in which you can add an application. You can do a bulk import. So there are some predefined apps and stream apps that are there. We'll import one of the task apps. So here you can see that several sample task apps are already configured here. And let's then create a task using one of those apps. So let's take timestamp. So we create a timestamp and we create a task. We just give it a name, timestamp. And we'll see that, okay, this timestamp task is created. We can now launch this. And we can supply some parameter values. And we have successfully launched the timestamp. Now we can go to the executions and see that what has happened to this. We can also see the logs here. The task is completed and it has printed a task, the timestamp. So you can see that how simply it executed one task. The task is shown complete here. Now let's see that how we can create a job, Spring job, as a task. So there was a timestamp batch that was there, and we can simply now add this as our task item. We just need to provide the name of the job, of the task, and create a task. Give it a name again, timestamp batch, and create a task. The task got created. We can now launch it. Just wait till it gets completed. Okay, now we can see the status. It's running and it's complete. Okay, we can see the details and check out the logs. We see that there were two steps in the job, or there were two jobs rather, job 1 and job 2, which got completed. We can now see that in the jobs menu that these two jobs are visible over here. And if we click on one of the jobs, we can see the various steps that were there in that job. And we can also see various statistics of that job. Now let's go back to the tasks. And what we can also do is we can combine two tasks into together to make a flow. So let's say I want to run a timestamp as well as a timestamp batch one after another in the sequence. So I can wire them together into a sequence and create a combined task out of it. So let's create one. I'll just name it as 2 tasks. Yeah. So here we can see that it created 2 tasks and then two another separate tasks under it. And we can now run the parent combined task. We can now see that, and by refreshing we can check that what is the status of these jobs. So the combined task is now running, and the first child task, the timestamp got completed, and the timestamp batch got into error. Let's see that why it went into error. So we'll check the logs. Okay, on checking the logs, what we see is that the job instance already exists and is complete for parameters. Okay, because we ran the timestamp batch earlier, so when I combined this, the same parameters were passed, because of which it does not allow that. And we probably need to change the parameters. So we can change the parameters here to something else so that it is executed again with a different parameter. Now we can launch the task, and we can again refresh to check the status. So again, the combined job started to run. It's complete. So this is how we saw that how we can configure the tasks and jobs in Spring Data Flow. Let us now see that how we can configure streams in Spring Data Flow. So for streams, again, we need to register some apps that can act as various endpoints for the stream flow. So endpoints could be like the source or the transformation or the end sink for a data flow. So here again, we can add some applications through different means. And there are some predefined stream apps that are available. So we add these predefined apps. And we can now see that various processes, tasks, sources, endpoints, those got added here. And we can use them and wire them together to form streams. So Spring Data Flow requires some kind of a messaging infrastructure for different endpoints in a stream flow to communicate with each other. We'll use Kafka as the messaging infrastructure, and we can download it from the Kafka site. And there are some instructions how we can run it. So on Windows, you can just modify the path and you can run the Zookeeper and the actual Kafka server. So here what I have done is I have already run the Zookeeper and the Kafka server, and we'll use this server to communicate as a messaging infrastructure for our stream application. So now we can start by creating a stream. And what I want to do is I want to, as a use case, I just want to pick the data from one file and want to publish the contents of that file onto another file. So I'll start by taking file as the input, and I'll pipe it and push the changes or whatever is coming from the input to another file. I can just rename this as in file. And I can name this one as an out file. Okay, so our stream is completed. We can just create a stream and name it as something like file to file. And now we can deploy this stream. While deploying, it asks for various parameters that you want to configure. So because it's a file, we just specify that, okay, I want to read this or this input process would read the file from certain location. So I'll use my work area input as the directory from where it will read any incoming files. Just change the backslashes to the forward slashes. Yeah. and I will use the output folder where I want to see the output of this input file to be published. So once done, we can now deploy our stream. We can now check the details of this stream. We can see the logs of the two processes, the input process and the output process. So here, if you see the logs, we can see that it is trying to connect to localhost 9092, which is nothing but the Kafka topic. And here on the Kafka server, we see that there was a request made by file to file to register a topic. So let's go back to the stream. We see that this is deployed now. Let us now publish a file to the input folder. We'll just create a simple text file. Let's call it as input.txt, and let's just put some text out here. And this is some input data. And now move this file to the input folder. So what we expect is that the content of this should be published to this output. And we see that, okay, that this content got published into the output folder. Let's put one more file just to check that it is working correctly. We added input2.txt and we add some other random content onto it. And this time we'll just add some multi-line data into this and save it, close it, and put it again into the input. Now we can check that the other two lines also got appended into the file sync. So this was an example of file to file stream. We can now create another stream where we can take the data from HTTP input and put the data into another file, output file. So just that the source is now, instead of file, it's an HTTP. And we create the stream by giving it some name. Let's call it as HTTP to file and create the stream. Again, this will take a little time to get deployed, and we can configure it. So the HTTP, we can configure the port on which the HTTP process would be listening for any data messages. And output, we want to again put the output onto the output directory, but this time the output file, we want to give it a different name. So let's call it as output to sync. Yeah, and let's deploy the stream. You can refresh this status to check the status. Okay, now it got deployed. So what we can now do is that we can try to push some data onto the newly created HTTP input. And now we can go back to the output folder and check. So what we see is that there is a new output to sync file got created, and we see the data that we published through HTTP available in this file. Let's publish one more message. Let's call it data 444, and we see that immediately that data is available in the output to file. So what we can also do is we can add some more steps and wire them together into a chain of Spring Flow or Stream Flow. So for example, let's create another flow which takes input and does some kind of a transformation on it and then dumps the output onto the output file. So let's take source as HTTP, and let's yeah, instead of source, I'll call it as, let's say, get message. And what I want to do is I want to transform this message and convert that into, let's say, uppercase. And write it to an output file. So in the transform step, I can define the expression that I want to execute on the data. I just label it as to uppercase. So this is how you can actually wire various steps to form a stream flow. So guys, that was it for today's session. I hope that it helped you to get a good understanding, or at least a basic understanding of Spring Data Flow and how to get started with that. Thank you.